like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, 'cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins #1. Yes, we're the
Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of the best, most positive Dolphins show on all the internet, the Fins Bandwagon. Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of the Fins Bandwagon. I'm your driver of the bandwagon, Evan Posner, and with me for another episode, and hopefully for a very, very long time, my pops and my co-driver. He's the backseat driver, Fish Tank Hank. How you doing, Fish Tank?
I'm happy to be here back driving you the way I'm supposed to be.
Yes, you are.
Turn
Yes, you
here.
are.
Wait, slow down. Watch out for that car.
Yeah, it's great to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We're going to talk about, it's been a great week for Miami Dolphins fans. We're going to talk about your experience at training camp. Then we had a great week where everyone was watching Zach Thomas, long overdue, get into the Hall of Fame. How amazing it was to see that you were in Cleveland with Joe Thomas getting to the Hall of Fame, but the team that had the most fans there were the Miami Dolphins. And it was a lot of fun. We'll talk about the experience of training camp this week with the Falcons and the Dolphins, and we'll also preview a little bit of tomorrow night's game and who we're hoping to see and what our expectations are. But to start off, everyone, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll drop the link over the next couple of weeks so you guys can join in and hop on the bandwagon. But tonight we're just going to talk about what we've saw over the last couple of days and go from there because it's just fun to be a Dolphins fan right now. So, Fish Tank, I know you talked about it a little bit because I know you did a little bit last week, but talk a little bit of what you saw and what you enjoyed going to training camp.
You know, training camp was a new experience for me. And let me tell you, it was hot. Yeah. We're talking like scorching hot.
I warned you. Umbrella weather in the sun.
And I brought all the equipment with me to keep me cool, though. The wife got me some stuff, got me one of those neck things and all that. Yeah. So, and then I carry a do-rag that I tie on my head when it gets to be too hot. It's like one of those frog skins.
Yeah.
So I put that on when it gets too hot so it doesn't bake my bald skull, too.
I'm almost there, buddy. I'm almost there. I just got a haircut.
So, but no, what were we talking about?
Training camp. What was the experience for you? I got to experience last year for the first time, and boy, was it hot also, but it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and about 3/4 of the way through, we were done there, and we needed to go because it was just our timing was a little bit off. We weren't really set like we needed to be, so I didn't really get to watch too much training camp either. But I really had a good time. I liked watching Tua throw the ball. I constantly watched him just throwing the ball. That's all I did was watch him the whole time, basically. Yeah. I wasn't worried about what the other people were doing because, you know, it's just that. It was training camp. They weren't with anybody. It wasn't like the Falcons were there. You know what I mean? So I just kind of chilled out, and I did notice that who was it? I believe it was Wilkins had the orange jersey.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, Wilkins had the jersey, and you know him, he's a ball of energy. So of course with that orange jersey, you're just following him everywhere too. So
yeah.
Exciting times. I mean, it was good. I was learning about that hill that they have there, the mound. Yeah. I don't know what they call it.
Yeah. They don't call it anything, but yeah, it's just like a mound where people can stand over.
Yeah, and it has like those little umbrellas where you can sit in there.
It's like an outdoor cabana in the 100-degree heat. Yeah.
Yeah, I wondered how you got one of those little cabanas.
Yes, I think you may have been entitled to one as a season ticket holder. I'm sure you could have snuck your way in there. Yeah, I think you could. I think you have to pay a little extra to get it, but I think you have to be a VIP. So I think had you maybe look into that for next year if you go, but I think you have to be a season ticket holder in order to get access to that.
Well, I'm definitely not a VIP, so we
No, but you
can go
probably can
right
inquire
past
as a season ticket holder. I think it is.
that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Birth. It's a birth. So funny.
but yeah, they
Hammer
look like they
time.
filled
Yeah.
up really quick or whatever. So you had to really be first to get
Yeah.
into them anyway. So
Yeah. No, it's a lot of fun. I took my kids last year, and it's a lot of fun for the kids because you see TV and you get to get some pictures. They set some stuff up before you walk in, and the food is like there's food there. But unlike a game where you're not constantly in motion, it's more just the experience of later on for the kids getting to meet the players who come to the end and getting to see just it's a relaxing environment. It's not a stressful environment, but at least when you're at a game, you get to get up, you get to go indoors. Here, you're really outside the whole time. There's no real shade. The shade is to go to the bathroom. That's about it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So
and but it's still good out there. You
yeah,
know, it's just a hot
beautiful
time of
facility.
year here
Yeah,
anyway, and it's
yeah,
just the way it is. If you're from Florida, then you're used to it.
just do it.
I wasn't quite used to that heat yet,
No,
but I
no,
get to go out in it tomorrow. So, you know,
yeah,
that'll be all right too. So,
yeah, can't complain. But it's the
but
evening game, right? It's the evening, so it won't be as bad.
yeah, it starts at 7 o'clock.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we'll probably get done around 10 or 11.
yeah, yeah,
So we're gonna stay overnight. We're gonna drive down tomorrow morning and then stay overnight.
yeah. I understand.
So
No, it's a lot of fun. But no, it's a good experience. I encourage anybody because the best part for young families who don't get the chance to maybe not be able to afford to go to a football game, it's free. If you get up and you get there and you get your standard tickets, it's free. So that's the fun part. They just want to just be part of the experience, be able to be up close, get to see what they're doing. It's not like a game, but it's at least you get to experience what people are talking about on all these podcasts and all these shows and writing in articles. Actually get to be there and see it. It's a lot of fun. So
excuse me.
because the coaches aren't going to change how they behave. That's the one thing I noticed is the coaches don't change and the players don't change how they behave whether you're there or not. Right? Like I've noticed that a little bit because so they're still doing their best. They're still making mistakes. They're still trying. They're still yes, they're going to give it up a little more to the fans and they're going to rile you up a little bit. But at the same time, it's just there to have a good time. You know what I mean? That's the point.
Yeah, the little things fascinated me, like when they'd blow the whistle and people would change so quickly.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd watch the movement and all that, and it was like a timed ballet kind of the way that they were shifting the players around. And I just thought that was kind of neat in itself, just watching how they have a system where they get the most out of their time they possibly can.
Yeah, it's very routine. I find it's very military. Like they don't want to waste their time out there. They're very, very diligent with their time there. And even if you're not doing 1-on-1s or 7-on-7s or 11-on-11s, and you're an Armstead or you're someone like that who's just doing off the training, they're not just sitting there. People might think, oh, where's Teron Armstead during training camp? You don't see him doing any of these. Trust me, he's on the side training. Trust me, they can't skip training camp. They're doing something. They may not be fighting, they may not be battling, but the guy's doing something. You know, he's out there. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah. So for me, no, it was a good experience. When I went last year, I'm happy you got to experience it, and no, it's a lot of fun. Following that, this past week they got to, and I said they got to experience joint practices with the Falcons, who on paper are not a team like the Miami Dolphins, but from what you've seen this week, there's been a lot of up and downs with the results. We're not there to see it, and you're not allowed to share. From what we understand, though, the reason why I called this show "It's Just Practice" is because there's been a lot. Let's talk about the positive first, and then we'll talk about what people are flagging as a negative. But I'm going to explain to you, and you're going to agree with me probably on the positive of it. But the real positive coming out of it was the fact that the defense seems to be really coming into its own during this joint training, having to go against another offensive line and another setup. So the defensive line and the safeties and the corner, what we've been hearing, and Wilkins seemed to be in and out. That was the one thing that I've been hearing reports of, that Wilkins hasn't in the last couple of days, the last 2 days of practice, was doing very, very few drills. Now people are saying now why he's not pushing himself so hard because he's awaiting a contract a little bit, but I just think they're not trying to push him a little bit. Obviously, he's one of your stars. But it's nice to see that with the way Vic Fangio spoke about his defense, on how he's still looking for his 4, 5, and 6. We talked about that during Finn's talk today, and how he's still looking for a deep safety and all that to go along with Holland. Like, to hear that the defense was playing well and joint practices, that's only something that we can all be excited about, since that wasn't the cog in the wheel of the Dolphins last year. So what are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree. Yeah, that's what they've been saying. The defense has just been plowing over the offense, and what we're saying is it the offensive line or is it the defense now? And as far as Christian Wilkins being eased up, that should be. I mean, he is a veteran. You know what I mean? So why work him so hard in the heat and all that when you don't need to? It's not necessary. That's how you get injuries for no reason. So I don't see that as a big issue.
Yeah, me too.
So I agree with you.
Yeah, I think experience with what happened with Jalen Ramsey and what's happening. The last thing you want, because the last thing that's always feared me a little bit, like with preseason. I know there's been talk over the years, why is there even a preseason? Because the last thing you want is getting your players injured in preseason. Like just now, I was just seeing some of the highlights of the first game between the Texans and the Patriots, and CJ Stroud did one series and they pulled him out, even though he's a young quarterback. Why? Because they want him to be his starter. The same way you're not going to see Tua out there in any of the preseason games. The last thing you want is your best players hurting yourself. The point of the preseason is to allow the new players to find out what they're made out of and to see what they can do. So I rather see a Brandon Peely. I rather see an Aubrey Miller. I want to see Cam Smith. I want to see the young. I want to see even Deshaun. Like, I want to see players who have not been Dolphins before, to see whether or not they fit this defense and fit this mold. A guy who's potentially going to get a $20 million contract, I don't need him getting injured during a joint practice.
Yeah, there's no purpose in that. And like you said, preseason's for a lot of different little things. And also we need to take a look at how it works for the offense too. Win. I want to see what Win does. That's the biggest one I'm looking at, is that guard spot and the right tackle. And everybody's watching those two spots.
Yeah, no, we're going to talk about that, because Cap for Life saying the excuses. We're going to talk about the offense in a few minutes.
Fins up, Cap for Life. Fins up,
and
Bobby.
Hammer time. Yeah,
Hammer
for
time.
me, it's really about, for me, the defense. As long as they're doing what they need to do and they're following the lead of Vic Fangio, I'm telling you. Plus, I want that hat. I'm a young guy, but that cool hat that he's wearing to practice, I want one of those. If you could, I didn't have one of those when I was down there. I'm sure that's going to be selling like hotcakes. The Vic Fangio little cap that he's wearing, it's awesome. I forget what you call one of those hats. It's super cool. But no, honestly, I want them to be a model of Vic Fangio. No nonsense. And you want to know what? I'm happy that he's being hard on his defense, because you want to know what? And you know what? He's not, as Steve and Bobby would love to say, he's being realistic. Good. But that's the only kind of realism. Not on this show, not on this network. We are positive. Let the coaches be realistic. Let them not be so whole-hum. Save it for the coaches, guys. Save it for the coaches. But
hey, no, I said that I think our team's going 15-2, and I almost got cooked for saying that.
I know. Speaking of Cook, we're going to talk about him in a few minutes too, because I have a thought on that today. But no, the defense.
Are we going to talk about him, or are we going to talk? Straight up.
No, I have a concept, because people keep on talking about the O-line, and I have an answer for the O-line. But no, for me, the defense, as long as people are, I'm looking forward tomorrow. So let's bring it in, because let's talk about offense, defense. But let's talk about the defense.
All right.
Who on the defense tomorrow, because they've been playing so well, are you going to be looking for and keeping your eye out on tomorrow during the Falcons and Dolphins preseason game?
I'm going to be paying attention to the D line, in particular, the depth. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to be watching, because I don't know how much they're going to start the starters, on that D line. I can't see a lot, if at all.
No.
And I want to see what the depth behind our players can do. To be honest with you, I'm going to be watching that the hardest, because our secondary's fine. I'm not worried about our secondary. We have enough people to compensate for Ramsey. We can't completely replace Ramsey as a player.
No.
But we can always put more talent in there. That we have plenty of talent on the team to do it with Trill Williams and a few other people. That's if Trill starts to come through and things like, those things still have to happen too. And I don't think there's a super big rush on a timeline for anything right now either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The players I'm going to be watching for is Brandon Peely, because I think he's one of those guys who actually has a real chance to make the team because of the fact that Raekwon Davis doesn't have anyone behind him. You have a guy, the guy who's been showing up a little bit of practice. The beginning is Mitchell Agudi that I mentioned I've been watching. I want to see Channing Tindall to see if he's actually figured out a defense. And I want to see Noah, see if Noah could be a real player, because whether or not he's not getting an option, but he better show up there. And we'll see what happens with Cam Smith, Elijah Campbell. Like, I want to see players who are the depth, like you just said. Those are the players you want to see going. Because to me, the Eli Apples, he's probably going to start. I think that you want to see the depth at those positions, at linebacker, at edge, at corner. You want to see those players, and that's what you want. So, yeah, it's true. Like, Backup Bench Podcast, welcome, man. No, there's a rat walking around the field of practice. He looked pretty good. It's amazing. I'd rather him be in a scooter, just relaxing and chilling in a golf cart. But if he wants to walk around, all the better. But now, honestly, the best part about someone like Jalen Ramsey is that he is the kind of guy who's not going to come back early, but he has the athleticism to come back healthy faster, probably than most. Also, we don't know how they're saying December, but that was when right after the surgery was over. If he's able to recover earlier, all the better. But the fact he's out there supporting his group, like for Sam Madison and that defense, the defensive backs, to have someone like that, he's in the coaches room, in the video room, all the meetings. That's phenomenal, right? It's not like Byron Jones, where you couldn't find him. He was playing around with all his toy cars last year. You never knew where he was. To have Jalen Ramsey in there is huge for us. He's the number 1 ranked defensive back in the NFL, and you have him on your team. So to have that kind of motor, to have that available to you, he's going to be back there, is awesome. That's the really, really important thing.
Yeah, I like, that's one of the big things that I saw him at practice, like they're talking about, without any crutches or anything. But I don't know if he had surgery yet or not.
Yeah.
When I saw him. So
I think he was on day 4 or day 5. Like, he was into it, but I know he was still. But people feel like that's the thing, is that no one knows what's happening, and they just judge it from another perspective. But for me, the defense, it can only go up. It can't get worse. You can't add the players that you've added, add the coach that you've had, because no matter what, the kind of coach that we have right now on the defense is never going to put you in a position. I would not. Okay, if I would last year when it was 3rd and 17 and they would get a first down, the other team, we'd all lose our mind. I would, if I was a player, I'm not worried about being yelled at by Josh Boyer. If I'm 3rd and 17 and I am Cam Smith or I'm Noah Igabogany and I screw that up on 3rd and 17, and I'm walking back to the bench and that's Vic Fangio, I'm shitting bricks. I'm shitting bricks. Like, I'm walking. I'm not going to sit down. I would never. I'd start running laps. Like, I would just run laps around the building. Like, that's the thing. I think the fear of God on them. That's the thing. You have someone who he's never going to be satisfied, and you're never going to know what he's thinking or feeling. So that's what I like. I like the way that McDaniel wears his emotion on the sleeve. Vic Fangio doesn't, and that's what you need. You need that yin and yang. But no, I'm happy to hear that the defense is doing well and that they're really finding their gel, based on the fact that last week during open practices they weren't gelling as well. But,
I have a funny feeling that these two coaches are just going to be phenomenal
together. Oh, it's going to be
phenomenal. I mean, you got Vic Fangio; he's all like level-headed and whatnot.
Yeah,
and he'll chill out. Mike McD. Yeah. He'll get him chilled out a little bit, and once that happens, I think he'll do better with his clock management and a few other things.
Exactly.
So. And they're going to bounce off each other. Sometimes Vic Fangio might need that energy that Mike McDaniel has, as far as, we can do this, because Vic's a little bit of the all right, what's going on? You know, he wants answers right away, and sometimes you got to wait for those answers. So
the only thing I will say about the defense right now, before we move on to other areas, is the fact that the one thing they better do before the season starts, so it doesn't sort of, I know they don't have to, but based on what he's proven in this training camp, I thought they should have signed him months ago. But they're going to have to pay Wilkins. They can't leave that cloud. Like the last thing I want is for Sealer and Wilkins to feel like they're walking into this next season as free agents like that. You don't want that feel. You want that sense that they are secure in their roles and that they're secure in their roles because no one's taking over them that's better than them. But you want to know that they are part of the core of this team moving forward. You don't want to have that sense of, oh my God.
Like, I don't know why Miami waits. Not to interrupt you. I don't know why Miami waits. Why? What are they waiting for? You know what I mean? It just goes up.
I think what they're waiting for is the fact that injuries happen in the NFL, and they want to save. Even though they might save money against the cap that's still there. If something happens where someone does get injured, they can use the remaining cap space they have right now. And not, even though they'll gain some cap space in different areas and they push it down, but for the existing cap space, they want to save it for people who might get cut, that they're going to need to fill that hole on the offensive line or add a running back or another defensive back or another linebacker. I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to play with the money. And I think I have a feeling that they'll be signed right before the week heading into week one. That's where I think it will happen after preseason. I think that's
you're right.
Happen. But all to say,
trade deadline.
I have a feeling that he could have been $15 million. It's now going to cost them $20 million, and but I don't think they're going to wait. It's not going to happen in the middle. They're going to, if they don't do it now, they're not going to do a trade deadline. They're not going to create a distraction in the middle of the season. I don't think they want that cloud. In terms of one point before I get to the offense, which I still want to bring up, I did because it's been quiet about it. I have no idea, and I'd love for someone to share with me what Jason Sanders has been doing this offseason. Because I heard during the kicks, I think one person mentioned it last week during one of our chats that he hasn't been doing all that great. And you know who loves Jason
You're
Sanders,
worried
right?
about the kicker.
I'm very worried about the kicker because in these close games, the fact that he has no motivating factor to try. They have no kickers. He's the only kicker. But Hank, he's been a last year in 3 games, he was a momentum killer. At least in 3 games I can remember, he was a momentum killer.
Yeah, you're right.
So he needs to be. I just would like to know that he's now kicking 50-yard field goals and 40-yard field goals without any hesitation. I hope, but we'll see. And Jake Bailey's punting well, better. I just want to make sure special teams is doing well. The only thing I'm not worried about is the fact that finally we have kick returners between A-Chain. I'm not going to see Holland back there. We're not going to see Hill back there. We're not going to see Waddle. Berrios and A-Chain can hold on to that job, and we can go right now. Cap's true. We can wait on to the Cap. Yeah.
Cap's got a good point there. You know, use it for week 8 when we really have injuries occur.
Oh, so. My God. 3 for 7. 3 of 7. Bobby, the Sanders hatred is back, buddy. Even on the Fins bandwagon, I'm going to smile. I'm going to be positive. No. I'm going to be positive. But Jason Sanders, my friend, I don't have words for you. But you better get your stuff together. You really, really better do, because I honestly, like, if that will be the Achilles heel, if this ends up being the Achilles heel of this team, that they didn't solve the kicker position when there's so many kickers out there because he's under contract. That's on you, Mike McDaniel. In terms of the offense, I'm going to go in terms of different areas. So the wide receiver core, okay?
Yeah.
The wide receiver core, Jalen Waddle went off. We don't know exactly what happened with him. But in terms of one thing that's been coming really out of camp,
they say he got the wind knocked out of him.
The wind out of it. I'm not worried about him. But the one thing that it did open up things for me is that it seems that they're using the different players like David Davis and other players during these reps, and they're not using Robbie Chosen. And what bothers me about that a little bit, and I want to get your opinion, is that he's outside of Waddle and Hill, which they can use in so many different ways. I believe Robbie Chosen is your best option as your deep threat. And the fact that you don't see him on 7-on-7 and 11-on-11s, he's not taking 20 snaps a game. Either he secured himself a position, and McDaniel doesn't want to tell us this, or they just see him as a camp body, which would bother me because.
Well, I've seen tape on Twitter of him catching the ball.
Yeah, he's catching, but it's not many catches. Like, they're giving more reps to Cedric Wilson and David Davis and
Probably because they need it.
Yeah. No, but my point is that what is that a sign of? Because he's not secure on this team. They signed him, but he's not like he's Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill or Braxton Berrios. Like he's in. That's what I'm saying. Is like for me, I just want to have an idea because for me, I think he's going to be a very important. I think he's the possible third because Berrios can do other things. Chosen's not going on special teams. He's not returning kicks. He needs to be a weapon. So
you need Chosen for that big body.
Yeah. So I hope for me that they're going to use him. I hope it's just a smoke screen. We talked about that last year before the season started, that everything they're doing during the preseason for McDaniel, we used to use the term smoke screen. I really hope they're using it as a smoke screen because I do believe that he can be a very important weapon for them. Craycraft, I think, is just a body that I think he's going to be your fifth or sixth receiver. He's a guy McDaniel likes, similar to Jeff Wilson, like because you brought up Jeff Wilson about an injury. Yeah. So the running game we'll talk about in a few minutes. But no, for me, I just really hope that tomorrow, all I want to see on the field tomorrow, I wouldn't mind seeing Robbie Chosen on the field tomorrow. Give him some more reps, but let it be the Easy E, River Craycraft, Cedric Wilson. Let them all get their reps. Let the bandwagon talk about Skylar Thompson and Easy E go over again like it did last year against the Eagles and such. In terms of, but the overall concept I want to talk about though, and then I'll talk about the position. Then I want to talk about the training camp. In terms of the fact that at quarterback, I still believe after this week that Mike White has shown this week that he is really the number two, but they're going to carry all three. We're not worried about that. But it's nice to know that there's options, right? We're not going to be in a San Francisco 49ers thing where they have to go to where they literally, Christian McCaffrey was the quarterback in the NFC Championship. Like, we almost won a playoff game with Skylar Thompson. If Mike White would have been in there, I think we would have won it. And then I think we probably had a little bit of a better chance. But now with Tua, we would have for sure won. So, like, it shows the fact that we have depth at the quarterback position, which gives me a sense of comfort. In terms of
do you feel like Tua's going to get hurt or something?
No, I don't have any. I have no belief that Tua is going to get hurt. I think that's what I'm going to talk about, the whole training camp thing, and that I think that's really a smokescreen about the overall concept of the offense.
Yeah, I don't worry about that at all.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why.
More than any other quarterback, you know.
I'm going to tell you why.
I say, anybody can get a hurt finger or hurt their toe, or you know, an injury can happen.
Yeah,
but I'm talking about him getting slammed to the ground and getting knocked unconscious.
It doesn't bother me. I'll explain why. I'm not worried about that yet.
Yeah.
In terms of the tight ends, that's what I think their role is going to be, because Durham Smythe will be your pass catcher when he needs to be, but I think we're going to see a lot with Elijah Higgins tomorrow. I think they're going to be testing out him a lot to see if that tight end slot position that he can figure that out as one of our draft picks.
I see him as a late round pick. We really hope something will happen.
Yeah.
And, and you had him converting.
Yeah.
So, I don't have all that much faith in what they're doing with him yet. But like you said, I need to watch and see what he does do.
Yeah.
And, I need to pay a lot of attention with that, because that's an important key right now for our offense is tight end. And I don't think they have a solution for our tight end right now.
No, I really think they're treating it like a blocker. And unless someone really falls off, unless one of them doesn't show anything at all, and Tanner Connor can't get back because he's slightly injured, they might maybe someone gets cut and they really feel there's a guy there who might be able to solve that, who might be better than what we have on the roster. That's not going to cost us a lot. I'm going to go to running backs last, and I want to explain the why, and then we'll talk about the whole training camp thing that I want to get to a little bit. But in terms of the offensive line, so for me right now, like you said, Isaiah Wynn, Cedric O, Dan Feeney, I'm not worried about Armstead. Yes, because for me, the offensive line goes as far as Teron Armstead wants to take it. That happens also. Like, if you took Trent, I understand they're a phenomenal team, but if you take Trent Williams out of the San Francisco 49er offensive line, he's one of the greatest offensive linemen to play. You don't think the offensive line is going to be struggling? It happens. It happens.
Exactly.
We don't have your leader. It's the same way if you don't have Tua. Same way if you don't have Holland. It's the same way you don't have Wilkins. If you don't have those players on those positions, you're going to get through it because they're all professional football players. But if you don't have your key cog who leads the way, It's like any leader. There's a reason why in companies there's not all positions that are all the same. There's a president, there's a VP, there's a director, there's a manager, because you need each one to play their role. The one thing that's been nice to hear is that Austin Jackson has been one of the stronger guys in training camp, which is nice to see. I want Isaiah Wynn to prove that he's really the swing tackle. I want to see Robert Jones so that he could play left guard, because Liam Eichenberg, no matter how positive you and I want to be, I wish the guy all the best. He went to Notre Dame, but that pick has been he's a turnstile. And the problem is the person who's hurt him the most, who's killed his chances, ironically, is Christian Wilkins. So if Christian Wilkins is the reason why Liam Eichenberg is struggling, I don't care, because he's going to be facing a Christian Wilkins every single week, and that just shows to you that he's not the right guy at that position. So whether it's Robert Jones, whether it's Dan Feeney, whether it's Cedric O, whether it's Isaiah Wynn, I don't care who it is. Ryan Hayes, for all I care, let him try out tomorrow night. I know he played left tackle, but put him there. I don't care. Try the guys out and see what happens.
No, they're going to be trying them out. I guarantee they're going to be trying to.
No,
and they'll probably try out a few plays here and there just to see what they can or can't do. I'm interested also to see what the backup quarterbacks do too.
Yeah,
not just I have a funny feeling they're going to be under a lot of pressure. So,
but I don't think they are.
If the line's as bad as they say, I see them under a lot of pressure.
But last year they weren't as bad. We always have to remember that they were 29th in pressures and all that last year. Our offensive line didn't get to our quarterback because they played poorly. It was because quarterbacks held onto the ball too long. And it was not necessarily that. They gave them the 4 or 5 seconds. So, yes, they may not all be superstars. But for me, if the offensive line ends up with Austin Jackson or Isaiah Wynn there, with Robert Hunt, the one guy who's actually bothering me in training camp, because he didn't come to mini camps or OTAs, and then because he wanted a contract. The opposite of Wilkins is Connor Williams. I heard during one of the joint practices to Tua, he threw a ball 5 feet over his head. I don't understand a guy who's in his second year as the center. Everyone said, "Oh, don't move him. Don't go sign a center." He's still having trouble hiking the ball and snapping the ball, and that's a concern for me, because I believe in Connor Williams. I think he should be the second best lineman on this team, but he still hasn't. He could be a problem for Tua, because if he doesn't figure out how to snap the ball, because Jalen Phillips and Emmanuel Ogba and Bradley Chubb, who are going against him, weren't having that much trouble. So there's no negativity. I said I believe in what Connor Williams can do, but my concern for him is the fact that I want them to figure out. I want him to play in the preseason. I think that he hurt him that he didn't play in minicamp. I feel if he consistently does this, he's had consistent issues since the beginning of training camp. So I want to see Dan Feeney at center tomorrow. I want to see a change there. I don't mind having a starter going in for a game, a snap or two, because last year, whether it was Michael D, the center position for me right now, better be solidified. And for me, I trust Connor Williams to the point where he can defend, but the snaps are going to be a problem if he can't get that under center.
Guys, Fins up, Steve.
Yeah, what's up, guys? But when it comes to the running backs, and then I want to talk about Mike McDaniel and what's been going on and what's the big talk have been about training camp this week, especially this week. The reason why I brought up Dalvin Cook earlier is what the training camp has shown to me from a perspective of the offensive line. And this has been talked about ad nauseum during the offseason by us, is when we were looking at potentially signing a running back, we talked about the Derrick Henrys, and then we dropped Dalvin Cook, and there was Kareem. The one thing a superstar running back does, number one, he helps your quarterback, because you can run your RPOs and you can run, and you never know what's going to happen. It's unlike what happened last year when you knew when Mike Gesicki was on the field, you knew it was going to be a pass play. You knew that. The scheme completely changed. But if you bring in a Dalvin Cook, you don't need to have the best offensive line. If you have the current group of Wilson already being injured, Mostert already being injured, Mostert's injury prone, A-Chain's been a little banged up. You're going to see him tomorrow, but he's a small guy. I'm going to bang the drum on the bandwagon, and I will gladly drive to Dalvin Cook's home and pick him up for every game. I will do whatever I need to, but he needs to be a Dolphin, because you need we're not need a bell cow. We need a scare tactic. We need an alternative. If I'm the defense, I'm not worried about facing Mostert. I'm not worried about facing A-Chain yet. I don't know anything about him. I'm not worried about facing Jeff Wilson. I'm worried about facing Dalvin Cook. I'm worried about facing even a Zeke Elliott. I want a polished running back who's gone for consistently over 1,000 yards in this league, who ironically wants to be on this team. So I will be saying every show until they do it, and I will be that guy who will have a little bit of trouble. I might be Fins Bandwagon, but I won't be Chris Greer or Mike McDaniel bandwagon if he ends up signing with another team in our conference, in our division. Because last year he showed in that Minnesota game that he's a big run away from costing you a football game. And I don't understand an extra $1 million or $2 million at this point. That, for me, and you'll tell me if you agree or disagree. If you have the cap space because you're leaving it open for potential another offensive lineman. If I had the choice right now, add one more lineman or sign Dalvin Cook, I want Dalvin Cook. Because last year, even with his injuries, Raheem Mostert was able to get 7 yards a carry in Buffalo. He was able to get over 1,000 yards from scrimmage between passing and receiving. So was Jeff Wilson between playing in San Francisco and Miami. So there's capability of the offensive line to do what it needs to do. So just imagine with the skill of Dalvin Cook. So for me, I want Dalvin Cook on this football team. Like, I think I see him doing all these things for training in Miami. He's ready to go. He doesn't need training camp. Just sign the goddamn guy. I don't care. Let him sit and do training with Teron Armstead for all of you. Don't even let him take a snap, but just put him on your roster. I don't care if it costs $7 million. Just put him on your roster. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are Dalvin Cook would improve our team and
immensely.
It would cause a lot of problems for defenses.
Yeah.
With our current wide receiver group, and it doesn't matter who's third. I mean, I'm going to assume it's going to be Chosen, all right? Just speed, just his speed and how tall he is, that's what I'm judging it on. So, and he has experience. So, between those three things, he'll probably be the number 3. You have that going for you. Now, I don't know who we're going to have for tight end. I'm hoping somebody, like you said, hopefully Higgins will turn around and do something spectacular.
Yeah.
Now, he's used to being a wide receiver. How's that going to work when he goes blocking?
Yeah.
I don't know how good of a blocker he is. That's what I don't know, and that's what I'm going to be looking for.
Yeah.
So, and you add a Dalvin Cook into all that, along with Tua, oh, forget about it. Yeah. I mean, that just becomes deadly for a defense. I mean, who and what are you going to cover? And honestly, he's 1,000-yard back. There's a reason he's 1,000-yard back, and it's not like the Vikings had the best offensive line in the league either.
Nope.
So, and he's still getting 1,000 yards, still clipping 1,000 yards. So you can't go wrong at this point. The only thing that you could possibly do, which nobody would ever see happening, is you hire the man and he gets hurt. That would be the only way you'd fail. That would be the only way you could fail, by hiring him.
Yeah.
As far as another offensive lineman, I agree with you. If they haven't figured out what they're doing with the offensive line, they didn't bring in people. You wait till they chop heads, for the rosters when they start cutting people down, and you bring somebody else in that way. That's how they can pick somebody else up. Yeah. So I'm not worried about that either. I'm not worried about defensive line depth. You can also do the same thing. Yep. So it's just a matter of what are we trying to get accomplished. And Dalvin Cook would accomplish a task, because I think we'd be closer to a Super Bowl with him than without him. 100%. And you put him in our division, and we have a bigger problem than not having him.
For sure. For me, the whole thing about running backs not getting paid, I understand it, but we're in a position right now to make a major step for our franchise. And the window is now. The window is not 3 years from now. And so for me, we're one of the most competitive division. We are in the most competitive division in the NFL. If you could build up a team, and the thing is that unlike a lot of years past, people want to come to Miami right now. The players who are free agents. If you went to Ezekiel Elliott tomorrow and said, "I want to sign you," you go to Taylor Lewan, "I want to sign you." Oh, Dalvin Cook, I want to sign. They want to come to Miami. It's not that they don't want to come right now. This is Miami being very, very stubborn with what they have, and I understand that because they don't want to. They think they have what they need to win, and they don't want to overcommit. But at the same time, overcommit because this is your chance with your quarterback and with this team. Like,
this is your chance to do it and actually have some real depth at running back.
Yeah,
where you should have 2 healthy players at least, and I'm talking Cook and A-Chain.
exactly.
Those 2 should probably be healthy. Now, the rest of them, can you guarantee me? No. So
not at all.
You know what I mean? So it's like at least have 2 people on the roster that aren't injury prone is my point.
Yeah. The last topic I want to talk about, but guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. But the one topic was the thing that's come out of training camp the last 3 days before they took a day off is how poor the offense has been and how Tua has not been hitting guys and that there's been struggles on the offensive line and passes are being dropped, interceptions. And I called this thing, and the same way we all didn't want to overexert ourselves about Skylar Thompson last year, always anointed because he had that Eagles game. The Eagles were in the Super Bowl, the Dolphins were not, and we killed the Eagles during that preseason game. I want so for people who are blowing it out of proportion, and that's a sophomore slump, all this. My perspective, and you'll tell me if you disagree. I love the fact that the offense is struggling. I love it. It makes me happy. The reason why it makes me happy is because if they're trying things, let them get the kinks out now. Mike McDaniel runs a very, very complicated offense. And when you're playing against other teams' windows, you're throwing into tight windows, you're trying things out. It's like the answer always said, you're talking to me about practice, Allen Iverson. Practice is about experimentation. It's about trying things out. It's not about perfecting. You're going to perfect that as you get towards the end of the year. We're in the month, it's August 10th. The season doesn't start for 4 weeks. Let them make their mistakes now. You have the preseason games. We don't want to jump too high on our players during preseason games. Oh, when they do well, calm down. When they're doing poorly, it's not a bad thing. And if the team is struggling in 3 weeks when they're doing still practices, or they're struggling against Vic Fangio's offense when we're hearing from the practices, fine. But right now, I want them to experiment. If the evil genius is coming up with new ways and people are struggling with it, it's only going to make them more annoyed. Are we really going to be that concerned that the number 1 ball dropper in the so far in preseason has been Tyreek Hill? I don't care, because when it comes to game time, it's time to lace up those cleats in a real game, and he's going up against what's his name, Derwin James and Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa. He's gonna be a superstar. I'm not that worried. So, what are your thoughts when you were hearing that the offense was really struggling against the defense, that they were having trouble against the Atlanta Falcons defense? Like, did that give you pause? Did that concern you? What are your thoughts on the fact that the offense has not been the jug? It doesn't come off as the cool juggernaut in its second year of implementation.
Until it's our number 1 starters and we're on the field playing for a W, I don't think it matters, to be totally honest with you. I think it's all just smoke and mirrors. And like you said, they're experimenting. They're trying a lot of things out. And Steve even said that the offense is experimenting. And I agree with both of you, because that's exactly what's going on. They're not going to sit there and open up their playbook while they're doing scrimmage with the Falcons either. You know what I mean? They're not going to sit there and open up their playbook and try to whip on them while they're doing, scrimmage. There's no reason to do that. So I don't see it as anything. I just see it as, Tua had a bad day. Well, it happens,
For me, in the end, practices, that's what it's for. And we could talk about how we don't want to get too high. We don't want to get too low. There's only a certain time to get high. And it's on this show and it's after the show. But
bird feeder.
But I want to just tell you that in the end, right now, I was more concerned about the defense going to training camp. And honestly, let the defense be a smokescreen for the offense, because the offense only got better this offseason. They didn't get worse. We didn't lose players.
No.
Mike Gesicki, woohoo. So And then now they're understanding the playbook. Let them get the kinks out. Let them figure it out. But because you know what's going to happen tomorrow when they have an amazing game against the Falcons, people are going to say, "Well, it's just a preseason game, not a big deal." So you want to know what? So when it's bad, it's not as bad as it is, and when it's great, it's not as great as it is. It always evens out somewhere in the middle in a positive way. And let me just read what Cap said. When they asked Tua why the orange jersey yesterday, I knew it was not good, but maybe they were running in the door. Something could. No, I believe that they didn't have an orange jersey. It was a symbol for Mike McDaniel to the Falcons. I don't think he wanted to show him up and point out who the great player was that game or whatever. But I think it was also a sign to them that no one played well. Like if no one played well, not a big deal. It's just you just let it go and you just move on. So in the end, for me, all I want is for them to sign Dalvin Cook. So in the end, guys, everyone just put on Twitter, Fins Bandwagon, sign Dalvin Cook, because we need to do that. Because for me, I think if people will stop talking about the offense, I will defend the offensive line if we sign a Dalvin Cook, because no one talks about how poor the Tennessee Titans offensive line was or how poor the Minnesota Vikings offensive line was when they had staunch running backs. I don't want to hear that no staunch running back hasn't made the Super Bowl. It's not about that. It's about the fact that there's a yin and yang of something, right? You have one good, one bad. Nothing's perfect on a team. You're never going to have two stout corners. You're never going to have two stout. There's always going to be something that is not going to be perfect. Every team is flawed, right? Look at our arch nemesis in the Bills. Because they have such a running quarterback, they'll never figure out the running. We don't have a running quarterback, so go get a running back. That's what I believe, right? So tomorrow, what are your expectations? Because you'll talk about it on Fins Talk today on Saturday, but I get you for the preview, not the post view and the post game. But what do you hope? What are your expectations tomorrow with this Miami Dolphins? Do you think it's going to be a balancing act where it might just be a close game, young players versus young players, or do you think that Mike White and Skylar Thompson and that group of the B team is basically going to have its way with the Falcons tomorrow?
I think the B team's going to come out and do a fabulous job. I think we have three great quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You know, I'm glad we have the quarterback room that we have based on what everybody has seen out of Mike White in camp. And once again, you got to take everything with what it is. You know, it is just camp, so how good is Mike White? Well, they say he's throwing really good. So we'll find out in the preseason game. I'm going to go there. My main focus is to party.
Have a good time.
Yeah, I'm going to go have a good time because it's going to be 7:00 at night. It's going to be beautiful out. I'm going to be on the home side finally. So that right there, I'm going to be juiced up just to see some football. Come on.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
nothing's more exciting
for a
than
long
football.
time.
I know. It's just even the fact that people are watching the Texans and Patriots on the NFL Network on preseason. Like football is football. It doesn't matter where it is. NFL football, it just sucks you in. And even tomorrow, we're all excited to watch the preseason game. We're excited to see Miami Dolphins play football, see what they have cooking. See, I'm always going to have that pun. Yeah, but no, it's going to be a lot of fun. I wish you a safe drive. I hope you have a lot of fun. Guys, it's been a pleasure to be on the bandwagon. It's a pleasure to have you guys on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll have a lot more content next week as the Miami Dolphins head into another week of preseason and practices. Where hopefully they continue to, maybe they'll have another signing. We'll have more fun things to talk about. There's never a lack of things to talk about. But always positivity here. If you want your warm and fuzzy, like Steve Malloy, who gets to go to bed with a smile on his face, that's all that matters. So, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as we always say, before I get there, I have to always delay it a little bit to go find my outro. Hank, have a good time. Bye, Pops. Bye, Adam. Bye, Cap. Bye, Hammer Time. Bye, Bobby. Bye, everyone who's joined the show, guys. Have a great night, guys.